the background on Elaine to introduce you. She is a catalyst who inspires new perspectives and possibilities for the ways we live and work. As a student of consciousness for 40-plus years, her experience includes metaphysics, Eastern mysticism, through study with a spiritual master and Native American spirituality, through work with the Lakota Sioux shaman. She has continually explored and practiced numerous leading-edge approaches to shifting paradigms and creating our reality, because she knows that the real journey of transformation is to connect with our inner powers as creators and bring a new world into being from the inside out. Recently, she launched the Cultural Butterfly Project as a catalyst for a culture of our connectedness and the well-being of all. Her bachelor's degree is in psychology, master's degree in social work, and master's degree in management have been the foundation of her work experience in coaching and counseling, facilitation, program development and coordination, community relations, and sales and marketing. Elaine Cornick is going to speak on her topic. We're in a messy transformation, and that's the good news. Please welcome Elaine Cornick.
Good morning. And well, I better talk to the mic, hadn't I? And it's a real blessing and a joy for me to be here today. I really appreciate this opportunity to come share with you some of the things that I've been discovering and learning over the years that seem really relevant for our time. I'm sure, let me get my papers here together. In fact, let me get this down here. So I'm sure that you've noticed a lot of the breakdowns going on in our world. That's not new news. The mess we're in, okay? Financial and economic and political and democracy and the environmental degradation, on and on and on, everywhere we turn around. Well, what I'd like to do right now is to back it up a little bit as if we're in a helicopter and take a little different view of what we're looking at here instead of being right on the ground in the middle of it. And take a look at our worldview. So what I'm seeing is that the worldview that we've been operating from for several thousand years is all about competition, conquering, controlling, separation, us versus them, whoever the them is. And you've probably heard Reverend Ruth talk about it as the empire culture. Right? Okay. I'm preaching to the choir here. I love it. And that's what we've been living for several thousand years. So it's interesting. The Native Americans had a word when the white invaders came to the continent. They had a word that they described what the disease that they saw, the white invaders that had, called Wetiko, or Wetiko, or Wendigo. It has different pronunciations, but the translation is the alienated human soul that no longer is connected to its own inner life force, so it feeds on the energy of other beings. Does that sound familiar? And in which the goal and the meaning of life appears to be the pursuit of maximum personal gain. And this is coupled with the chronic inability to feel compassion for the lives of other beings. So violence, exploitation, and oppression are not only justified, they appear logical and rational. Does that sound like the world we've been living in for thousands of years, right? Several millennia. And I think it's probably enough. This is a zero-sum game. There's no winners here. And it's bankrupt, in a word. So if you use a sports analogy, this game has flags on the play. Several flags, a number of flags. And increasingly so. And so we're being whistled to a stop by all these different breakdowns that we're seeing. And so I'm thinking, well, why are we in this mess? Okay, this is kind of the what's going on, but why are we in this mess? And it's the false beliefs that we've been based on, that are upside down. These beliefs are killing us. A couple of them. One is that matter is real, and it's the only thing that's real, and so matter causes and creates other matter. That's a Newtonian belief. And from quantum science, we know that the truth is that energy is the only thing that's real. Energy causes and creates matter and the material world, the physical world, through our thoughts and our beliefs. So that's part of how we've been upside down. The second thing is that competition and the struggle for survival is what's real, is the only thing that is happening. That's how life is. And you've heard that one for years from Darwin, right? The survival of the fittest. Well, from quantum science, we know that evolution is the basis. Evolution is based on cooperation. Cooperation is actually the basis for evolution, for our lives, and that the whole biosphere is actually a harmonious balance, except for human beings. We're the outliers. We think we've got it all figured out. And so it's all gone upside down. And you may be thinking, oh, so how on earth could this possibly be good news? Where's the good news in here, right? Well, this is, I want to use the caterpillar, the metaphor of the caterpillar and the butterfly. And at the end of its life, the caterpillar becomes a gluttonous monster. It goes on a feeding frenzy. It's just eating multiple times its body weight, eating everything in its path. Kind of looks like some of what our world is doing now, right? And then it finally just eats itself into a stupor and goes into the chrysalis. And there it deconstructs. It disintegrates. It dissolves into a soupy mass. Okay, breakdown, big time, total breakdown. And inside the chrysalis, where this breakdown is happening, there are cells that biologists call imaginal cells. Isn't that a wonderful word? Sounds like imagination. They call them imaginal cells. Those cells have been there all the time in the caterpillar, but they've been dormant. You have no way to know that they were even there. So they're hidden, and they are the blueprint of the butterfly. So as the caterpillar breaks down into this soupy mass, the imaginal cells are nourished by this breakdown. And they start developing into the butterfly because they finally have the right conditions. The breakdown is the right conditions. Okay, which sounds a little strange, but however, there's a caveat here. Becoming a butterfly is not guaranteed. Now, when I was in school and we learned about caterpillars and butterflies, oh, caterpillar goes into a cocoon, and out comes a butterfly. You know, it's like, not so much, not really. Because when these imaginal cells are in the chrysalis and starting to develop, they must connect with each other. It's critical that they connect with each other, or else you get no butterfly. Okay? That's important for us to think about, metaphorically, but with our lives as well, on all kinds of levels. Okay, so it really is a tricky process. There's no guarantee, because it's an organic transformation. It's not a linear change where you can just kind of, oh, I'm going to go in the chrysalis and then I'll come out the butterfly. It doesn't happen that way. So we need, I think, a new worldview for what the meaning of all this is. And it's creating cooperation and connectedness and consciousness as the basis for our lives. And that's the culture that we were working toward creating. So I want to give you some examples, because this is already happening all over the world in all kinds of ways and places, individually and groups and all kinds of things. which is part of why I started the Cultural Butterfly Project almost a year ago. I kept seeing these examples. I'm going, oh my, it really is happening. And on my website I have a number of examples, but there's thousands more. One example is an organization called RSF Social Finance. They are making finance restorative by revolutionizing giving and lending and investing. Their vision is that money serve the highest intention of the human spirit, okay? And contribute to an economy that's based on generosity and interconnectedness. Now, is that out of the box or what? Okay. And they've been around for some years and just really thriving. Another example is a group called the Defend the Sacred Gathering. That's a network of activists, ecologists, technologists, and indigenous leaders who share the vision of creating a regenerative cultural model. Their mantra is, if life wins, there will be no losers. So, if you're wondering, how do we become a butterfly, either individually or culturally, collectively? Well, it is an inside job. This is not one of these things where we can do the usual outer hero's journey. We're going to take off and fight them, conquer them. No, it doesn't work that way. So it really is about connecting with spirit, with source, and both on an individual level and on a collective level. We need to do that soul work both ways. And navigating this transformational process and the unknown, which is where the miracles and the magic happen. And consciously connecting with other imaginal selves. Okay? We can't do this by ourselves, for sure. And in fact, and also knowing the principle of morphic resonance. In the quantum field, morphic resonance means any action that, or energy shifts that somebody makes has an effect on the field, on the matter, and it increases the probability that other people or beings who are on similar wavelengths that will amplify their thinking, it will support that. It amplifies that action and that culture. So I want to give you another example, this time from my life, my personal story, briefly. Growing up, and this is, isn't hindsight 2020 wonderful? Don't know this stuff when you're going through it. My story, I grew up very much living the empire culture. It was competing, achieving, pushing, striving, driving, always, that, and consuming myself, consuming other people, consuming the planet. I mean, it is very much that empire culture. And did it really well, and felt very unfulfilled, increasingly so over the years. Finally, eventually, as I got into a number of years, I began to feel like something was missing. This kind of, and boy, I really tried finding all kinds of ways to put my finger on what that was. And so I finally just went on a search, a very intentional search, that something was meant, and I didn't even know what I was searching for. I just knew I wanted to have a different life that I loved. And I actually moved, I was living in Portland at that time, and I moved to Central Oregon. And as I look back on it now, that effectively put myself into a chrysalis. Didn't know at the time, but that was my time for starting the deconstruction, the disintegration, not only of my outer life in terms of how that looked, and unraveling is a term that I've used sometimes, but more importantly on the inner level. My beliefs, my whole framework, my perspectives, my ideas about myself, my identity, what the world is, what it should be, all those kinds of things, just disintegrating and deconstructing ongoingly. So I'm not going to tell you it's a pleasant process. It wasn't. It isn't necessarily, although it has sometimes absolute joy and magic and clarity, life, real life. And but I experienced a lot of confusion and disorientation, and disillusionment and disenchantment. I had been enchanted in so many ways, and have illusions of how things were and who I was, and I remember a number of times feeling like, wait a minute, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I thought I was getting into. Let me just go back. Right? Have you ever had those feelings? And but I continued to do my spiritual work, my consciousness work, the inner work. Fortunately, because that was the thing that really kept drawing me and pulling me through it. So it was, a lot of times it does not look like a pretty picture, and yet coming out of that chrysalis, it is the most life-giving process, the most life-giving. That's where we get real life, and I'm on purpose in a way I hadn't ever been. So what I know is that all of you here in these chairs are all imaginal selves in the emerging culture. That's what we came for. That's what we signed up for. That's what you're here for. This is our time, and it's time. This transformation is what we've been waiting for heaven's sake. It's like, what am I doing here? Well, it's not just to do the usual life stuff. It's to do this transformational work as well. And so it is happening, and the deconstruction and the disintegration process is necessary. Not only these external structures, and I know how scary this can feel, trust me, but the external structures have to deconstruct, because you can't create a whole new something on the basis of what's already there. It's like you have to have clear space for new life to really emerge. And so that's where the transformation comes in. So I hope that today I've given you some new perspectives, a different framework to think about, and to hold what we're going through. And I'd like to just close with a quote, or not quote, a poem from William Stafford, because I've loved this for a long, long time, and I'm beginning to finally realize more why. It seems that it describes some of the experience that I've had, that the clients I work with, that I see, what they go through, and what I see going on in our culture. And the poem is called "The Way It Is." There is a thread that you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what things you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you suffer and grow old. Nothing you do can stop the times unfolding, but you don't ever let go of the thread. Thank you.